Hogstye.
Hello, everybody. Happy Super Bowl week. It is the Hogstye. I'm your host, Alex. I got Steve. I've got Dave. I've got a bottle of Jack Daniels sitting next to me, but I'm not drinking that right now.
Do we know that, though?
Huh?
Do we really know you're not drinking it?
Do I sound like I'm a little more articulate and high energy than usual?
I think you're such a drunk that we might not notice.
Yeah, did you actually drink yourself sober? That's the question.
I haven't done that since my 20s.
Although, to be fair, I have talked to Alex when
You've talked to me sloppy drunk,
very
yes.
drunk. Yes, and there is a difference.
There is definitely a difference.
Even for me, who's never been drunk, I know Alex was drunk.
I'm just drinking water today. I just have the bottle here for other things that have been going on outside of the podcast world.
Just boozing it up for whatever other reason.
For whatever other reasons, hint my job, hint where I work.
That's a whole nother show.
It's a whole nother show. All right, but we should talk about, there's a lot going on with the team. And we're going to start, we keep avoiding the name. When I talk, I avoid it. When you talk, you avoid it. But Josh Harris came out. He did his postseason press conference. Josh Harris has done this now every year he's on the team, all two of them, where after the season's over, he has a little press conference, answers questions. You know who never did that? Schmider.
No, he never did. Because he was terrible in front of the media. That's why.
Yep. Right. Because he was terrible and he was a bad person and he would say stupid things.
Merry Thanksgiving, everyone.
Merry Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. He did say.
Did he say happy? Okay.
He did.
Yeah.
He just said it like 6 months after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You know, it made no sense.
In other words, he is terrible in front of a microphone.
He is just bad at it. But Josh Harris is not charismatic, but he's at least sincere, so he's decent on the mic. Anyway, he was asked about a lot of things with, the team, stadium stuff. He didn't give a lot away. I think he was very frank, and at the same time, like, there's not a lot we don't know that isn't out there. But he did get asked about the team name, and I don't have the quote in front of me, but he basically said, we're embracing it. We're not changing it at any, and they're really not going to entertain this discussion anymore of possibly changing the name. Much to the chagrin of a great number of the fans, and I will include myself in that. I'm assuming I can include Steve in that. Dave, I know, is kind of just accepted reality better than either of us. Am I right about that, Dave?
I've taken a very unique approach, and trust me, the approach is not approved by many fans either at the same time.
No. People are as mad about you being accepting as they are about Josh Harris being giving up.
Here's the quote, by the way. So the question was from, believe it or not, somebody named Stephen Wino, I guess. Wino.
Yeah.
And this is from J.P. Finley quoting this Wino guy. The question was, is it safe to say the name Commanders is sticking around? Josh Harris, yes. That's the quote.
Yeah. That was the second. There was a first question where he had a longer quote, but yeah, he was asked the black and white question, and he said yes.
So here's the thing. And Dave, by the way, wrote it in his column that was published on Wednesday. You can read it there at thehogstye.com. Dave, what I gathered out of your position is you've kind of tortured yourself into the gyration of kind of accepting it, and you say in particular that the people who are actively rooting against the team because of the name, and the people who you don't like those people, and the people who are continually rooting for Redskins, you don't agree with them either, and you've sort of accepted that this is kind of your team. You don't like it, but it's your team. I mean, I take a different approach.
Well, no, it's the ones who actively root. There's two groups of people I can't stand. The ones who actively want to just root against the team because they're not Redskins anymore, and those who put themselves on this little arrogant pedestal and downgrading all those who want the name back, who carry the nostalgia, the history, and and they talk about the name, they want the name, they still want the rebrand, all that stuff, and they're not understanding where they're coming from, that they speak down on them. They're the two groups of people I can't stand.
Okay.
The ones like you, to where it's like I'm not really a fan, but I don't root against the team. I don't want them to do bad, but I'm not like I used to be. I got no problem with fans like that. I got no problem with fans who want to still use the name Redskins while still rooting on this team. They still wear Redskins apparel, all that stuff. I got no problem with that either. And I got no problem with especially the younger fans who all they know is misery on the Redskins anyway. And they switched the Commanders, and that was it. And that was fine. I mean, all those fans, I got no problem with any of them. It's those first two groups I spoke to. I can't stand.
To be perfectly honest, I have to pull myself off of the cliff of Mount Hate on a regular basis.
Right.
Because I do deeply resent what happened and that my team is gone. And I can't bring myself to, wish goodwill on the team. I cannot. I don't wish them to do badly necessarily. Certainly, and I'm doing this show, every week.
You haven't quit the show, so
no. But I kind of have to force myself to have the attitude I have, and that's the truth. And the other thing is, I just think the Commanders is the all-time stupidest team name in the history of team names, irrespective of the fact that they destroyed my beloved Redskins. The Commanders is an absolutely ridiculous name. Because for one thing, if you want to get technical about it, if you have a room full of commanders, nobody's actually in charge.
Right.
Either that or you're naming it after a mid-grade naval officer, which makes no sense either. One of those two things is true, and both are dumb.
Yes.
See, when you have that conversation like that, I speak with this one guy at work I talk to all the time, Bobby. He actually likes the name. He thinks it's a good name. There's a lot of people that I work with that think it's a good name. They like the name. There are younger fans, newer fans that have no problem with the name. It's a good name. But what I keep explaining to people, especially like Bobby and all them, when you have the history that we had, the nostalgia that follows, the golden era that we had, and the promise that was given to us that this new rebrand would carry on part of the history, which doesn't at all in any form whatsoever. When you put all that together, people like you and I were sour on the name. We don't like the name. It's a complete disconnect from the Redskins itself. That's why when I taken the path of treating this as more of an expansion team than anything else, that was my only course I was able to do. I separated pretty much the history on the most part from what we have today, just so I could keep moving forward, because I couldn't even tie the two together the way that some people can, and they could just move on.
I can't pretend. I can't pretend.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the thing. I'm not pretending anything.
I'm not saying you are. I'm not pretending
this
is the Redskins. It's not.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what irritates me most out of all of it is when we see clips of the old classic Redskins team. They never use the word Redskins. They always put Washington without a nickname. They use the new logo, not the logo. There's been media stuff that the team has put out that has deleted the word Redskins. That really irritates
get that, and to me, the one that's also a bridge too far is when they've stopped doing this. And Josh Harris said he's making a point to stop doing this. For a while, they would put out like a picture of Doug Williams, and they would have like a piece of confetti conveniently like covering up the logos on the helmet.
That's what I'm talking about, stuff like that.
Yeah, that was like when you're getting ridiculous with it and stupid with it.
And like I said, all this makes me really, I have to make a conscious effort.
Right.
Not to bring ill will and have Dave's wrath come down on me. I have to make an effort to not act like that.
So here's my thing. One, it is an awful name. It's not. The whole rebrand was one of the worst rebrand jobs I've ever seen, and I live in the town that also changed the Bolts to the Wizards. So,
which is another terrible rebrand.
It's which is a worse name, but they did a better job of rebranding than the Commanders did.
Right.
The C words, you mean? Get it right.
So just for fun, by the way, on Twitter, I did a ranking of all the team names for DC sports teams.
Ah, okay.
Which is fun. I did not include all the defunct names because, like, I don't have time. Like, and also Twitter's not big enough for me to include every former sports team in Washington D.C. But here's my list. And somebody reminded me I missed one, so I'm adding it in ad hoc. Number one, Capitals. Great name. You know, you got a good franchise going. You got a good like marketing thing going. It makes perfect sense. Two, I'm putting the DC United at this point. Again, it works with DC. It makes sense.
Who are the
Three,
DC
I'm going to
United
throw
again?
the soccer team.
Oh,
DC
soccer.
United.
That's not a sport though. You got to use sports teams. Names.
Okay. Well, okay. The Capital City Go-Go, which is the minor league basketball team.
Okay, that's good. We can accept that over the soccer team.
Okay. If you're not going to include the soccer, that's fine. I'm putting the Defenders after that, then the Nationals.
Who are the Defenders?
The Defenders.
Oh,
the
Defenders.
XFL team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, like the team that only Alex East watched.
Hey, me and 10,000 other people in the stands. I'll throw the Divas in after that, which is like the women's football team. The
So
DC
like 10
Divas.
people watch that.
I don't. Not even I watch that. Another one Steve doesn't recognize, the Washington Spirit, the women's soccer team. Then at 8, I'm gonna put Commanders. And after that, I got Old Glory, which is the rugby team, and that's I get it, I get what the name theme, but it's just an awful name for a sports team.
That is an awful name for a sports team, yeah.
Like patriotic or not, it's just a bad name. And then the Mystics and Wizards are my last two. So
who are the Mystics?
The women's basketball team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
we have some bad names here.
I was also just kind of thinking. I think one other thing that also kind of plays the difference between me and you, Steve, and it could probably I could separate a lot of the older fans in this same category. You have a more generational tie or a more emotional tie to the name than I ever had, because you had your dad, you had the history, you went to the games, you had family, you had all of that. I was just one. I was 1-1, and that was it. You know, surrounded by Eagle fans. I've never been to RFK. I've never been. I mean, the only games I've been to are outside of the RG3 playoff game with the Redskins and a couple games at the Link. I've been to all of the current teams named now with, to those things. So I don't have the kind of tie, the same tie as you, although we both have the nostalgia, the history. I don't have this same emotional tie, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'd like to, I've said it on the show before, but I'd like to go over a brief history of this, because I've seen some morons in our comment section question
and I think
my
you should.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my father was stationed at the Pentagon in a couple times, but the first time was prior to Joe Gibbs, and I was a very, 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 very young kid. And back in the Pentagon in those days, even then, there was a waiting list for season tickets, and a lot of the guys in the Pentagon would keep their tickets and just sell them to, when they were PCSing, meaning leaving, they would just sell them to locals, people in the Pentagon, so they could keep them. And so my dad bought multiple seasons of those while we were there. And then that same thing happened again in 1982, the strike shortened season, the famous Super Bowl season. So we did it again. So I went to a lot of Redskins games. Every time I lived in the DC area, my father's a military Air Force veteran. I moved all over the place, more than most even veterans did. But I was stationed in Washington several times. And I went to every game in the 1982 season. I saw Mark Mosley break the field goal record. I was the Darryl Grant play in the NFC Championship game happened literally right in front of me. We almost went to the Super Bowl. My parents couldn't afford to make the trip, but could have got the tickets. And I was a season ticket holder myself at one point in time. I went to the second ever game at FedEx Field. I have a longtime fan, and the name Redskins, my favorite player ever, my first hero was Chris Hanburger. And the name Redskins means everything to me, because it's going to connect, because of the connection to my father. And so it means everything to me. And this Commanders thing it's an insult to me. I hate it. It destroyed everything that I remember about those times, because it's not really about football. It's not really about football for me. It's about the connection to my dad.
Absolutely. I get that.
So
I
that's
mean,
why I resent this so much.
look, and you and I've always disagreed. I've always said this was going to happen eventually, but like I totally understand where you've been coming from with that. Like the whole familial bond that people have with sports is huge, and it's not just this team or one thing. Like I think everyone has that. Do, we just
We just had a technical goof. Dave
uh-oh.
dropped off for some reason, but we will get Dave back.
Dave got too emotional.
Dave, either that or he got kidnapped by aliens. One of the two. But we will continue on, and we will find out what happened to Dave.
Yes. Maybe give Dave a hot text there while we're.
Yeah, we're doing it. I'm on it.
Yeah.
But so my
Now,
point is, like, this is why it means, and I understand why a 25-year-old has no connection to Redskins and whatever. Why are you
Yeah.
guys complaining? Because you don't know nothing but misery.
But even a 25-year-old probably has that familial thing that you're talking about.
Some of them do, yeah, but
Some
some
of
of
them
them
do.
do, some of them don't.
I mean, so like for me personally, like my dad was a Giants fan because he grew up in New York, so that was his team. But we lived here, and my earliest memories are watching the team with him, literally sitting on his lap, like while
Yeah.
and he had one friend / client in particular. They watched every game together, every Redskins game when the team was good. And so like I literally remember being maybe 1.5, sitting there watching that in like the 84, 85 season, somewhere like that.
Oh, I
Um,
forgot the other thing I forgot to mention is my dad got to know Dave Butts through a means I don't want to get into the details here.
right,
I've had Dave Butts' Super Bowl ring on my hand.
right.
It really means a lot to me, and it's just it's really hard.
No, and I get that.
It's ironic
Now,
that I never got Dave on the show, but he
yeah.
got old
Well,
and didn't do stuff.
you
Yeah.
mentioned off air like you've
Yeah.
tried once or twice.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It just doesn't work out because we won't get into it. Here's my thing. I hate the name Commanders. I do. I think it was a terrible name. It was badly marketed. Like I was saying, I kind of assumed this was going to be the scenario or how it was going to work out.
I never thought you were wrong. I might have denied it here and there, but
Yeah.
it was always, I knew it was going to happen.
In the back of my head, I hoped they would change it. At least go to something less stupid. I think anybody who seriously thought, and I've seen these people on Twitter, even some people who I like on Twitter, seriously thought that the team would go back to Redskins.
Obviously, that was stupid. And Dave's back, by the way.
Yes, Dave, are you all right?
Yeah,
fight off the terrorists.
We thought you were being either kidnapped by aliens, possibly, or we had a computer malfunction. One of those two things.
I'll tell you what, it was like the fireflies were behind me. Everything went pitch black and everything. I thought I was afraid to be abducted.
But in terms of the Josh Harris thing, specifically, now we've all told our stories. Dave, I told my story. Alex told his story. Yeah. You told yours, so you didn't really miss anything. But in terms of the Josh Harris thing, people need to understand something. One, it costs a butt ton of money to do things like change names. A lot of money.
Even if you don't spend on the research side of like and I think that's what killed them with the last one. They spent way too much time trying to figure out the perfect thing, and they came up with the worst thing.
Well, it's not only that. I mean, you have tons of gear that's out there.
Right.
Items that are marketed. You have to do. You can't just throw that in the trash can. And you owe NFL properties money for some of this stuff.
Right.
It's really, really, really expensive. And Josh Harris never really acted like he got. Also, he's from Philadelphia. Is he from Philadelphia?
No, he's from DC.
He's from Boston.
From here.
He's from Boston.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He has ties up in Boston, but he is from DC. Right? He has ties from Boston through.
Okay, well, I guess
lawyer, but that's something different.
My point is, he's never acted like he's a huge lifelong. Like the only thing
he's
Dan
a huge
Snyder,
lifelong fan.
Yes,
he grew up going RFK.
Did he? I mean, he's never acted like it meant that much to him, whereas Dan Snyder always did.
Well, I think
your read is way off.
Okay.
I think
I've never seen that in him.
I think he just sat back and wanted to see how the season went, and with the way the season went, the jersey sales, all that stuff.
He's certainly putting money ahead of ahead of taking a step like that. I mean, he's never told the fans he's going to change the name. He never ever
No,
said
they
that.
were always non-committal.
Yes.
But here's my thing. I think that there was a window where he could have done it, and it was right after he bought it. Like
Okay.
the
So
whole
according to
let me
Wikipedia,
wait
he
a
grew up
year
in Chevy
thing.
Chase, Maryland. So you
Yeah.
guys are right. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. No, both him and Mitch Rails are like huge diehard.
I knew
Yeah.
Mitch Rails was.
Yeah. But I think the window, even though they can say, oh no, they could have done it like a year or two out. No, it was either you're gonna do it right after you buy it, or you're not gonna do it at all. Like changing, like realistically, that was their window.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, from the NFL Constitution, they did give them a window to change the name with like less of a hassle, but it was still going to cost a fortune to do it.
Yeah, the price wouldn't change.
I was never expecting him to do anything. I mean, it would have been great. I signed the petition. There was a petition going around. I never, and one, petitions are stupid, never mean to amount to anything. But two, it was never ever going to happen, and now we're stuck with Frank.
I'll be honest with you. I think he was probably positioning himself to, if they were going to do a rebrand and seriously do one, that they wanted to have a successful rookie campaign and a face of a new rebrand behind Jaden Daniels. But unfortunately for Redskins fans, that successful rookie campaign turned into a storybook season on the most part. And the process of the whole thing, they started selling the merchandise as far as the NFC Championship game. It just got to a point to where it was like, I mean, can we really honestly do this now after the success we've had? People buying the merchandise. Right. Jaden Daniels jersey is number one selling jersey in all of sports, not just the NFL, and all the sports altogether. So it was like, I mean,
the answer is no.
Right.
Now the good news from what Harris talked about is that he was very, I don't want to say public or open or anything, but he did pretty much say, yeah, we're going to change the jerseys as soon as we're allowed to. And we're going to go back to more of a classic Redskins looking uniform.
I'll tell you one thing that will make me hate this franchise. If they don't get rid of that freaking black uniform, I hate that. I
hate the black uniform too. What they're talking about is, at least what people are claiming, is they think they'll go back to looking like they did in the 80s and 90s with just the new logo or some version of a new logo. I think that would be better. I think that'll make a lot of fans happier if it looks like the Joe Gibbs era.
And stop ignoring the fact that they used to be the Redskins.
Yeah. And Harris does not seem to be that, like, I want to pretend it never existed guy.
Right.
Except the team has pretended it never existed.
Mm-hmm. And if they really want to go with the alternate uniform, go back to, I forget what year they brought it in for that season. It was under Spear. I think it was like 2001, I think, with that
the 2002 Spear helmet.
Yeah, that with the actual true burgundy and the actual true gold color jersey. If they want an alternate jersey, do something like that.
Well, you saw the picture I came up with of that I literally just ripped that off, and that's what I would do.
I mean, just do why that.
No, take the spear off and put a W or something on. My only crazy idea of what they should do, put George Washington's face on the side of the helmet. He was the original commander-in-chief, right? Maybe a profile of George Washington. He had a little ponytail, right? If you remember, on like the quarter. And maybe you put like a little like oak leaf on the side coming down.
So then the question becomes, does somebody own the image of George Washington? This is the way the attorneys come up
no.
With. Yeah, but somebody would own his estate. And what image? They'd have to license an image from somewhere.
That's a good question.
This is why we're not doing it.
Well, you're the lawyer, so you should know. I mean, you shouldn't know who owns George Washington's estate.
I should not know that. Why would I know that?
No,
I build buildings, Alex. I don't manage George Washington's estate.
All right, I googled it. It's something called the Mount Vernon Ladies Association.
There you go. See, so we'd have to pay. We'd have to pay the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. Is the bottom line.
Yeah. They've owned it since 1858. which okay, that's an interesting year
So I
to.
love it when people argue with me and then they're wrong.
I wasn't arguing that no one owned it. I was like arguing that I knew he didn't have kids, so it's not like it's a direct descendant.
It doesn't matter. Somebody
Yeah,
owns it.
it's a corporation of ladies, a ladies' corporation.
Are they? Yeah. I'm about to get myself in trouble. I'll stop.
All right, so let's move on a little bit, unless anyone has anything else to vent
No, I
about.
just, I still hate the C words. I'm always going to hate the C words.
Right. And make the uniforms look like the throwbacks. The throwbacks were cool. That would be
Above all else, stop disrespecting the past, please.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think they are making that conscious effort going forward. From what I can tell, that they're going to acknowledge all of it to include Redskins as well. And I wonder
the future and the past.
Right. And I wonder if they're going to just take that. Remember the shirt that Dan Quinn had with the W and the feather on it?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they're going to incorporate that somehow within the.
I doubt it.
Apparel to do something for a throwback.
Didn't we decide Dan Quinn just did that on a lark on his own?
Yes. Yeah.
He might have been out drinking and like that's a cool shirt.
I think NFL coaches drink a whole lot more than people really realize.
Oh, yeah.
I think they have to.
We've heard stories though with it,
Yes. So and some of them are pretty honest about it, and others are not.
Yes.
Some lying, some are telling the truth, but they're all drinking pretty heavily.
I don't think I would fit in very well.
No, I don't think. You know what? There are probably the Joe Gibbs types that you would fit in better with.
Yeah, I'd have to hang out with somebody like that.
Yeah, because
can I have a
Joe
water,
Gibbs
please? I mean, that wouldn't go well.
Gibbs was a teetotaler his whole time, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he was a teetotaler, but certainly wasn't a boozer.
So why don't we move on though? Let's talk about Steve. You've been starting as we haven't gotten into the full off season.
We'll kind of wait until after Super Bowl for that.
Right. Yeah. That's always our tradition. But you did do your 2025 roster preview. This is kind of your breaking down of where they're at on the offensive side of the ball, who's here, who's not, what are their needs, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I've split it up because I did one of these one year and published all at once. It was way too long, so that's why.
We don't need 10,000 words.
Yeah, it was it was like 5,000 words or something. It was way too long. Okay, so the idea here is I went through and I updated the salary. I have not, still haven't published on the website, but I will this weekend. Because I had some things to update. But so we go by. I went by group.
Right.
Looked at the salary. Who's left? Who are the free agents? What are the salary cap ramifications? Right. And so, first of all, if you go through all the gyrations, and I'm not going to waste time explaining a ton of it here, but overall cap space issue, after you get through all of it, they're going to have somewhere around, I estimated between 45 and 55 million that they can actually spend in free agency, because basically they've got, what I came up with is about 197 million allocated to the active roster right now. Mm-hmm. And then there's 13 futures contracts. You got to throw that in. That's another 12 million and change. Got to throw in cap space for the draft picks. I think 9 to 10 around that. They're going to have some rollover space from this year. So all that, and then the cap's going to go up. So after you do all that math, which I did in this piece, which we published on Monday, bottom line comes out to they've got, I think, 50 million. They can spend about 50 million. Yeah. So that's that. So let's tell you what, let's just go by position group here. And then you guys
we'll just talk position groups and go from there.
So the easy one is quarterbacks, right? So right now they've got Jaden Daniels, Sam Hartman. That's it. Mariota, Jeff Driscoll, free agents.
Right. And Mariota apparently drawing a lot of interest in free agency from quarterback needy teams who might see him as a 1-year starter option.
Right. I would, if it were me, I would try to bring him back as a backup, but I have to, what I wrote in the piece, I have to think that somebody's going to offer him a starting spot somewhere.
Yeah. I heard the Jets were one that they might
Raiders
bring him back there. I'm sorry, not Jets, Raiders. I don't know why I thought Jets.
And certainly, like, Jeff Driscoll is not the answer. And Sam Hartman probably isn't the answer to what they really need is a
No.
veteran who can play. I think Marcus Mariota is the perfect backup for Jaden
He
Daniels.
is.
Yeah.
But this from a cap perspective, between Sam Hartman and Jaden Daniels, they've got like $9.5 million, which is peanuts for a quarterback. So they have my point with that is they can sign like a veteran backup and throw some money into it because they don't have any money put into the group.
Right.
Okay, running backs on the roster right now for 2025: Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Demetric Felton, Michael Strachan, Casimir Allen. Felton, Strachan, and Allen are all futures contract. By the way, a futures contract is a contract where basically the team reserves the rights for practice squad level players.
Right.
And then the contract technically doesn't come into effect until the league year starts, but this reserves the rights and lets them stay in the building and stuff. So, but
do they even get like a small amount, like a little fee or something when they sign those? Do you know?
Well, they can actually go back and negotiate these later,
okay.
again, if they wanted to. Most of them don't, but so really, if you ignore them, Robinson, Eckler left, McNichols, Rodriguez currently free agents. Now it's noteworthy Rodriguez is on the practice squad, and they did not, as of yesterday, had not offered him a futures deal, which means
that is interesting.
They might let him go to free agency. So you guys, salary cap wise, both Austin and Robinson and Eckler have cap hits next year of 3.2, 4.96 million to just under 5. So they're looking at a little over 8 million.
Yeah, fairly cheap. Not spending a lot there.
So you guys' thoughts on this?
I've actually, because I've been looking at, we talked about it before a few weeks ago. I've been looking already at the free agent market. There's not a ton of free agent running backs you'd really want to go after. There might be one or two. They're not game breaking. You're not going to get a Henry this year, but they probably should really consider getting a third serious running back to help this rotation. Robinson and Eckler were a good 1-2 punch in some games, but neither of them were able to play all 17, or not, they weren't 100% for it. I think they need a third back who they can rely on, who can maybe be different from what those two are, frankly.
I as far as the running backs, because I think a guy like Ashton Genty from Boise State is going to be out of the question. He'll be drafted probably mid-round. But yeah. I personally really think that they should focus on getting one of these first two picks at one of these running backs, like maybe even like an Omari and Hampton, or out of North Carolina, or even a Travion Henderson from Ohio State. These are the kind of guys that are game-breaking running backs. They are natural in terms of, recognizing the hole, patient runners, and everything that Brian Robinson Jr. just is not. And these are guys that can be receiving threats out of the backfield. I mean, you can keep Brian Robinson Jr. as your David Montgomery-esque type player, even though he's not quite that good either. And then you got to bring in a guy that's going to break this game up. You got to have somebody there with Jaden Daniels that's going to be a threat coming out of that backfield. They just don't have it. Eckler's not it. I like Rodriguez, but he just isn't that guy either.
Seems to be on the outs somehow.
Yeah.
Previous regime guy,
That's true. I think they need to figure out how to replace Brian Robinson as the number one back. Brian Robinson's average at best. He's had a couple moments. He had 3 games, I think, this year where he did well. He's never going to be an above average back in my view. And so, and we'll get into we're going to do our normal free agency and road to the draft and all that stuff as we go. So we don't necessarily have the answers now, but the point is, I think this is a group that they need to look at and need to bring a starter level player in my view.
I mean, you're not going to get, like I said, there's not really a free agent, so you got to look at
maybe you draft somebody.
Draft.
Yeah.
You need to look to the draft, and I don't know if outside of like 2 or 3 guys, I don't know if there's a superstar. Like after,
Probably not.
Actually, there is one name that would be intriguing. Would be Scadaboo.
Yeah, everyone's obsessed with Scadaboo.
I'm not. He's not a guy that's going to be like your Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry type of guy.
No.
But he is a guy that's got good hands out of the backfield, and he will steamroll you over.
Yeah, he's a
I
Mike
mean,
Allstott type.
yeah, I like him, but unfortunately, what you need is opposite of him, in my opinion. So,
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
he's a thunder. You need a lightning.
yeah, yes,
fair enough.
absolutely.
I don't know if I agree, but fair enough. Okay. Well, we can disagree, Dave. I mean,
Yes.
you know, it's fine.
I get you. Yeah.
Wide receivers is a train wreck. So
Yes.
currently on the roster, Terry McLaurin, Luke McCaffrey, and then two futures guys, Lawrence Kager and Chris Moore. De'Ami Brown, Noah Brown, Jameson Crowder, KJ Osborne, Olamide Zaccheaus, all free agents. And while I'd say De'Ami Brown, Noah Brown, and Zaccheaus in particular had their moments, and Jameson Crowder had moments as a kick returner or punt returner, I forget which one.
He was doing a little bit of both.
Yeah. None of them were consistent this year. Luke McCaffrey did not show much.
No.
Not to say he won't next year, but he didn't this year. And so not only that, but Terry McLaurin has a $25 million cap hit next year. Now, I'd like to point out that he's going to be 29. I love Terry, you know, in terms of his playing ability, he's great. You know, especially a third round draft pick. He's been way more than anybody could hope. But next year is the last year of his contract.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they got a decent offer for him, maybe they ought to look into it.
Vehemently disagree.
Well, I know, and I'm not even saying they should look for it, but I think if somebody offered him something, a 29-year-old, maybe they take it. Well, the going's is hot now in terms of and Luke McCaffrey is, by the way, minimal cap hit. So I mean, it's Terry McLaurin, it's the whole thing. They need to totally rebuild the group. It's as simple as that. And these guys weren't that good last year. Jaden Daniels made them look better than they are. So they need to totally rebuild it, and that's why I'm saying maybe you let Terry go.
I don't think you do that for not just, you know, I get the age thing. He is the not, I don't want to say face, but he is the leader of this offense.
Oh, I know. I get it.
You know, I think he's your Larry Fitzgerald. You know, you remember how Larry Fitzgerald was kind of just that guy for Arizona forever.
I know what you're saying. I do really do. But I mean, if somebody drives up with like multiple first round picks, I mean, you know.
Well, if someone does that with most players, you do that. But no one's going to do that for Terry McLaurin.
I don't know. He's an all pro.
He is, but
well, right now when you look at McLaurin, you know, at 29, he falls in that window to where you want to take advantage of Jaden Daniels' rookie contract. You know, he's going to still be productive for the next probably at least 3 more years, and that's the window you want to try to squeeze out a potential championship before you have to give Jaden Daniels that massive deal later on. So you keep, in my opinion, you keep McLaurin, probably even give him an extension so he's a lesser cap hit this year, and you give him more money down the road so you can get someone either like a T. Higgins, who's been a popular name out there, maybe even apparently like DK Metcalf has been a rumored probable trade target. Yeah. I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay with him. I love his size and speed and everything, but I think he's kind of starting to hit a wall right now on him for himself right now. But right now, when you look at the draft wise, the draft isn't completely loaded at wide receiver this year. But the one name to keep an eye on, or two names actually, would be Luther Burden, the third out of Missouri, and also Emeka Ekbuka out of Ohio State. You get one of those two guys on the other side of Terry McLaurin. Now you have that transition of Terry McLaurin eventually out of another potential first round guy, maybe bring in De'Ami Brown as a depth guy, trade for a Cooper Kupp if he comes for the real cheap for the slot, and then you can slowly start rebuilding that receiving core over the next few years while you still have Terry McLaurin anchoring it and hopefully taking advantage of that 5-year window of Jaden Daniels. That's how I would approach it.
My approach would be, I agree. I would re-sign McLaurin to an extension that basically goes up to right before Jaden Daniels' final year of his rookie year, or goes up to that year. Because I assume they're not going to do the stupid, like, give him the 5th-year option, then, string him along
Well,
like
you
they
got to
did
see
Kirk
how he
Cousins.
does. I mean, if he takes a dive like C.J. Stroud did,
Maybe.
Oh, sure.
Maybe.
I mean,
True.
but right now you can't project that. We're looking at what we see right now. So
Yeah. I would actually be looking to do that and bring in another free agent wide receiver. They did, because I think, and I know everyone talks about T. Higgins, and I get it. He's the probably best young receiver out in there. I'm okay if they go for a vet. Go after Stephon Diggs. Go after Amari Cooper or any of these guys. Who's the other one? Hopkins. Like all those guys are free agents. I know they're all over 30. I'm just bringing them in for 2 years. I don't really. They're not a long-term solution, but it's somebody who can be a better threat on the other side of the field, is my thinking.
Yeah, and I'd like to emphasize I'm not really advocating for this. I'm just throwing
No,
it
I know.
out there as a possibility because I think you need to think about it.
Mhm.
What they actually need is what Alex said, which is they need to find another kind of big time receiver to be obviously, and they have money,
Mhm.
to do this. I mean, the
I
problem
would
is
I
that
would bring
McLaurin
back
is going to
one of
cost.
these other free agents that they have, though.
Yeah, oh yeah, and the problem is McLaurin's going to cost fortune. I mean, there's
Mhm.
no getting around two-time Pro Bowler,
Yeah,
second team All Pro, face of the franchise. He's going to cost a fortune, and
right.
and I don't know if you can bring Stephon Diggs in and Terry McLaurin from a side because you're going to have 50 million in receivers alone just with those two guys. That's a lot of money, and
but
that'd be like half of what they can spend.
this is the time you can do it right now.
Well, I
Like.
mean, you got to think if they really think that this year wasn't a fluke
Mhm.
and they really are a Super Bowl contender, then yeah, I think you probably go all in.
Right.
My opinion, if you want the truth, is I think it was a bit of a fluke this year. Their defense, we're going to get to defense. Their defense isn't good, and it's going to be worse because of free agency. We'll get to that next week. And I
Now. Oh, sorry. I thought
well,
you.
and I think that um, Jay Daniels is great, but I also think it took, the better teams had a better handle on him,
Mhm.
and once you have a year of film, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So I don't think it's guaranteed he's going to just destroy everything like he did this year.
Right.
That's
But
also
sorry,
why
Howard,
it's
That's
important to add one or two big weapons.
we're going to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you
that's
mean
why that's exactly why I think something along the lines of bringing in a Cooper Cup who won't cost you nearly as much, drafting one of these young receivers in the first 2 rounds, and in the process getting one of these top running backs in the first few rounds too as well. You start loading that skill position down around them. You take a little more pressure off of what we need to talk about eventually is that offensive line, which has just
we're
been
going to get there. I'm saving
brutal.
that for the end.
Yeah.
Yes, so
We
but
we can't focus too much on every position, but they do have to
right.
bring at least one of the Browns or Zacchaeus back. I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
I
All
would
right,
say, hey Jaden, which one do you like? That's the one we're taking
just
and
let
bringing
him
back.
pick. Okay, we're going to move on because we do have to do other
Yeah.
stuff. So tight ends is an epic level train wreck. Um, the only tight ends on the roster active is Ben Sinnott is the only one who
Mhm.
is active. They signed Cole Turner and Tyree Jackson to futures contracts. Zach Ertz, John Bates are free agents, and John Bates was kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Ertz we know about. That is a train wreck, and they're going to have to bring somebody in. If it's Ertz or somebody, they have to sign a veteran. And Sinnott is on a rookie deal, 1.6 million.
Yeah.
He had a
Not a
nice
big deal.
catch in that championship game.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
one nice catch. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think they need to bring Ertz back. I think we all probably
Someone
are.
else.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, do you have anything to add? Tight ends.
The only thing additional with that is I've been hearing some people championing of us getting Kyle Pitts off the Falcons, but
That'd be
the only
another
problem
one.
with
Another
that is,
trade rumor. Yep. Another
yeah, I
trade
heard
rumor.
about that, but the only problem with Kyle Pitts, man, he has been highly inconsistent.
Mhm.
And it's like he's young, I get that, but for the last couple of years, we're like, well, if we get the right players, right, you get the right system around him, if you get the right quarterback, you get the right,
Yeah.
it always excuses of get the right whatever. I'd much rather not touch a Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, fair enough.
Steve, do you think we could just do all O line real quick,
Yeah,
like
okay.
as
All
one
right.
big
So
block?
all right. Um, guards and centers. Sam Cosmi, Nick that are in the roster next year. Sam Cosmi, Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz, Chris Paul, Julian Good-Jones. The free agent is Michael Dieter, and the tackles Brandon Coleman, Andrew Wiley, and then Anine Dankwa signed a futures deal. And the free agents are Cornelius Lucas and Trink Scott. And as we know, Sam Cosmi is probably out for the whole season, at least most of it. Guards and centers, they've got $24 million in cap space. Most of that is Cosmi, and then Biadasz. And then as in the tackle group, they have very, very little in tackles except Andrew Wiley. He's got 10.4 million, and then Coleman is on a rookie deal, and Dankwa a features deal. So that's
and Coleman probably not even much more than $1 million, I'd imagine, right?
Coleman has 1.38 million.
Yeah. Okay. So dirt cheap for.
Yeah. So the summary is they don't have a starting guard because of Cosmi.
Right.
They'll
probably release Wiley and need a tackle too.
Yeah, Wiley has the bottom line is they could save 7.75 million if they cut Wiley because he has a small dead cap, and Wiley's also terrible.
Yes.
So anyway, go ahead.
I think we just summarized it. You need a guard, you need a tackle. There are a couple of veteran left tackles who will be available in free agency. It might be worth it to grab one of those and either kick Coleman to guard or move him to right tackle, or they
I don't think Coleman's a great left tackle. He's not. He's okay.
I think he's, I think he was in over his head against some elite guys.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
I think we've talked about this before. He's probably better at guard, just given his body type. But I'm giving a shot at right tackle first. That's just my instinct. Tackles are more important to me.
Well, I mean, I agree 100% with Coleman with that. I mean, he struggles mightily with the elite edge rushers, and you're gonna face that every week being your left tackle. And and Wiley, I think they need to look and maybe using him to move into guard to help offset with Sam Cosmi at the beginning of the year next year. They have to get him off that right tackle spot. They got to find someone, because I mean he's more of a natural guard than he is a tackle, and I would basically we need bookend tackles.
They would need two tackles if they do that. Yes. And I don't disagree with you. Wiley's a horrible right tackle.
Okay, they could also swing Allegretti over the right tackle.
I'd much rather just bring Lucas back on a 1-year deal to be my right tackle until you find someone here this year or next year. He's better than what you have at Wiley. To be honest,
he's at least average. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. And the last one, are we done? So the last one, the specialist, is also a train wreck. Yeah. Long snapper Tyler Ott is signed through 2026. Tress Way is free agent, which is distressing me greatly. And both kickers, Gonzalez and Siebert, are free agents, and good riddance, both of them. They'll find a kicker, but they don't have a punter. So they really need to re-sign Tress Way. And yes, he's been around a while. Yes, he's expensive, but he's also probably the best punter Washington's ever had. And you're an idiot to let him walk. Just pay him. They have some money. Pay him some money. Bring him back. This is his home. This is where he belongs.
And he has a perfect passer rating this year.
He does.
In his whole career, actually. He's 3. So.
Okay, so that's the summary of offense. We'll do defense next week.
Yep, we'll talk defense next week. All right, we're going to fast track this now. Let's talk Super Bowl, guys, because it is Super Bowl weekend this coming weekend. It is the matchup nobody wanted. The Chiefs going for 3 in a row versus the cesspool boys. So I will be honest. There was a good hour or so of my life that I was considering not watching the Super Bowl this week.
Can I be honest?
Yes.
What's the Eagles fight song, Dave?
EGLES.
I'm gonna have
that's the end.
You're talking about the Fly Eagles Fly.
Fly Eagles Fly. I'm gonna have to learn that song because I have a strong rooting interest in the Eagles this week, because I can't stand another moment of the Kansas City Chiefs and all the nonsense that comes with them. I really hate it. And so I will be rooting for the Eagles. I think that Patrick Mahomes is too experienced, and Jalen Hurts was hurt last week. I have a feeling that Kansas City, if you look statistically, Kansas City shouldn't be where they are.
No.
They really shouldn't. None of their stats are that good, and by Super Bowl standards. And they won several games they probably shouldn't have won. Patrick Mahomes is that good. So my strong rooting interest is the Eagles because I'm sick and tired of Taylor Swift. I'm sick and tired of Travis Kelce. I'm sick and tired of Patrick Mahomes' wife and somebody's sister is out there now. I mean, I hate it all, and so
And
I'm
I
rooting
still
for
hate
the
his
Eagles.
brother with a
The
passion.
brother, I still hate the brother from his disrespect to Sean Taylor. So I'm strong. I'm gonna have to learn Fly Eagles. What is it? Fly
It's
Eagles
Fly
Fly.
Eagles fly. Yes.
Fly
I'm gonna
Eagles
have to
fly
learn
on the
that
road
song
to
this week.
victory. Fly Eagles fly. Give me touchdowns 1, 2, 3. Am I getting that right?
Yes. Around that. Yes.
And
We're
then
gonna
hit
have
them
to use
low, hit
that
them
as our.
high, and then watch those Eagles fly. Fly Eagles fly on the road to victory.
See, Alex knows it.
I know.
Alex,
I know fight songs pretty well, generally speaking.
we're gonna have to record that and play it. So, but anyway, so that's
I
my
did it
Super
as
Bowl.
spoken word.
Oh, and by the way, the other last thing, and I'll shut up. Another rapper for the halftime show. Please, for the love of God, get some variety in there. Country, rock and roll. Get a comedian. Get Kevin Hart out there for 10 minutes. That'd be fun. Anything but another
that
rapper.
is a fun idea. Put a comic up there, but they'd have to work clean. That's the hard part.
Okay, I mean, figure it out. But anything but yet another rapper or
Yeah.
no rapper or pop artist. I can't.
Give me
take it
Jim
anymore.
Gaffigan. He works clean.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's my thoughts. You guys' thoughts?
Okay. Well, after all that.
I'm sorry, I had to get it out.
That's okay.
Steve was pent up, Dave.
See me, I would love to see a three-peat. I've always been a Mahomes fan. I get it. People hate the fact that he flops the way he does, but you know what? He's taking advantage of a ridiculous rule that they have in place, and hopefully that they change that with replay assist next year, and that goes away. But he's playing to what the officials and the league do for quarterbacks, and he's doing it pretty well. I get that. I know it's frustrating. People hate that. But I'll be honest with you. I think the Eagles have the edge. I think they definitely have the better roster. Definitely the better running game. Maybe not the better quarterback, of course, and everything. But Spagnuolo is the one key to this game. Spagnuolo's defenses are just ridiculous when it comes to the playoffs. And I think he's going to have a game plan that's going to confuse Hurts early. And they have a defense that can help slow down Barkley enough where they'll keep him to about 130 yard rushing as opposed to 200 yards rushing.
Yeah, to keep him to 130 yards rushing.
And you know what? That's a good defense against him right now this year with that offensive line. If you keep him at 130 yards, you had a pretty good day. But I think and aside from the Taylor Swift thing, I get all that. I'm annoyed by that too as well. I just hate every aspect of the celebrity and politics and everything involved with my game, and it all drives me nuts. And you don't have all that on the Eagles side. I get all that, but being here in Philadelphia, being around the fans like I am, and if it wasn't for the fact that I have the brothers that are diehard Eagle fans that they are, I would have complete vile hatred for this team, but I don't. So I just want a good game. I'm pulling for a good game. I want to see a good Super Bowl. Whoever wins, I really don't care. I would love to see a three-peat, but I would love to see my brothers witness their second Super Bowl championship at the same time. So I'm kind of torn on whose side. But for their pep ride they're having tomorrow, I got a special treat for them because they want to know who I'm going to support. I'm going to wear my Redskins Donovan McNabb jersey in there. So
that's nice of you.
And I'd like to point out, Dave, that you talked longer than I did.
Hey, you know what? I am very long-winded. Everybody knows.
That's why you're on the show, but you criticized me for going on and on, and you went on and on.
Oh no, I said that in terms of that's a hard act to follow.
Okay,
that's all.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, part of me really is rooting, and I don't want anyone to get hurt, obviously, but I'm really hoping that at midnight, like Friday night, Saturday night, somewhat, the roof of the New Orleans Superdome collapses, and we have to just cancel the game. That's what I'm rooting for.
Alex, I got news for you.
I know it's not going to happen.
They would move it to Houston. That's what they would do.
Would they move it? I guess Houston's the closest. It makes sense.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They'd move it to Houston. So that's
I didn't
not
know if maybe they'd move it
to
Baton Rouge and put it at Tiger Stadium.
No.
And he would probably make his way 2 weeks before they even play that game in Houston.
No, they would do it that night. They would. There's too many TV contracts, Dave.
Everybody needs to not forget that I represented a Super Bowl host committee.
Yes. I know that.
And in terms of the game, so a part of what I wanted to, you said part of it, Dave. It's like the Eagles, on paper, it looks like the Eagles should win the game to
Yes,
me.
absolutely.
Their defense is outstanding. They've shut down people all year, but I can't get past, as much as I'm rooting against it, the idea that Patrick Mahomes tends to come through when things are worst and when it looks bad, when there's not really a reason for him to be able to come through. Particularly, I think this is probably the weakest of the Kansas City teams. They've lost some players. Their running game is trashed by Super Bowl standards. I mean, don't Samaje Perine is their running back. Travis Kelce's a year older. None of that makes sense, but Patrick Mahomes just seems to come through. And so that's why, while my rooting interest is definitely the Eagles, I just think logic would say that the Eagles should win the game, but I think I think for no real reason that's statistically worthy, I think Kansas City's going to come through.
No, I mean, it's if you give Patrick Mahomes the ball and they're down a score in the fourth quarter, they're going to win it. Like he has
almost
that
the
gene.
mentality.
We saw that with Jane Daniels. Jane Daniels has that gene.
He's got that same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an intangible makeup that some of these guys have. Only the great ones have it, where they, in the fourth quarter, it turns on in their brain, I'm going to win this. And there's maybe 5 quarterbacks who've had that.
Yep.
And I think, Dave, you sent this out in our little group chat. The NFL actually had to release a statement
about
claiming that the referees are not cheating for Patrick Mahomes. Any of you total idiots out there that actually believe that the NFL is cheating for Kansas City, get help, okay? That is not happening. What you're doing is you're imposing your being sick and tired of the Chiefs mentality that I have onto the refs. Okay, I'm not going to read all this, but Roger Goodell actually had to put a statement out about this. He said it's ridiculous.
Did the head of refereeing.
Yeah, and the statement is actually about that. But Goodell said it's ridiculous to presume the NFL officials are not doing everything possible to make the right call on every play. Nobody's cheating for Patrick Mahomes. Okay, it's not to say they may not give a bit of leeway to some veteran quarterbacks, but there's not a conspiracy to try to get the Kansas City Chiefs in. That's just stupid.
So here's my counterpoint. I agree that there's not some grand conspiracy. If things are so situationally bad with refereeing and officiating at this point, where you're putting out statements before your championship that no one's cheating, then you need to have a long, hard look at your whole refereeing process. Because we know things are bad. We know that they're not doing a good job. They might not be throwing games on purpose, but we saw it in the NBA. What was that? 20-ish?
Wasn't quite that long ago. Yeah, that was, well, maybe it was 20 years. It was the Lakers.
It was the 2008 election-ish time. I remember that because I did a campaign commercial about it. But yeah, we saw it then. There are refs who are corrupt in other sports. Don't think it can't happen to the NFL, especially with how much.
I can't remember the story. If people forget very briefly, there was one ref whose name I can't remember, who was being paid off by somebody, and he did referee a game in the Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Kings, and mysteriously the Lakers had a whole bunch of foul calls at the end of the game toward the end of the second half, which allowed them to come back and beat the Kings. They didn't really prove that he did that on purpose, but they did prove that he had
a pattern of behavior.
Right. Well, and he was corrupt in accepting money and was in trouble with a bunch of like Tony Soprano types and stuff. So I can't remember his name, but that's what Alex is talking about.
Yeah. So don't think it can't happen in the NFL.
Right.
And they need to do a much better job on their end to make sure it's to keep everything above board. It would be my point.
That's fair.
Well, see, I think right now what we're seeing is the same thing we saw with the 49ers in the 80s, Cowboys in the 90s, the Patriots doing their run, and what you're seeing right now. The team on top, the pinnacle team, you see all the bad calls and you put them on a level of, while they're making that call to protect Montana or Brady, they're doing this for the 49ers because they want the 49ers there. They're whatever. And you hear that. I've heard in my entire sports life, and I continue to see it all the time. But the thing is, and especially the last 10 years, I pay a little more attention when I watch these other games with these officiating, and because it's gotten worse over the last 10 years, just officiating. I think the complexity of the rule book adds to all that, to be honest with you, because there's so many determining factors that these refs have to do at one moment notice. But like, for instance, what a catch is, whatever. But I think it's more or less, the Chiefs are the top team. Mahomes is the baby face of the league. So when there's a call that's made that looks like that favors him, no other quarterback gets that call. Well, I got news for you. That kind of call I saw Trevor Lawrence get at one point. I saw that call even Brissett early part of the year. I've seen him get a call. I see it throughout the league. The only thing is, it's the Chiefs. Just like back with the Patriots, it's the Patriots. So you put more onus on that, thinking, well, they're getting these favorable calls. It's more spread out than what people really think, so it's me. I don't see it. I don't think there's a guy I work with who thinks the NFL is completely scripted, which is absolutely insane to me to even think that.
I've seen that. I've seen something online that's called BetterHelp. That seems to be an online mental health counselor, and I'd encourage your friend to contact that person.
I know several people who use it in my social circles.
Yeah.
I might need that number for him.
Exactly.
Well, who was it? The former running back for the Steelers said something about that he claimed they were rigged at one point.
Le'Veon Bell, I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Who needs to help himself?
He does. All right, we are at time. Now there were some fun rumor mill stuff.
I think we need to blow through those. We can't ignore them.
Yeah, we're gonna blow through them. All right, so two names in the trade rumor mill that are both being linked to Washington quite a bit. Now, I'm going to say I did misspell both these names in my notes. I'm not going to tell you how I spelled them, but Cooper Kupp and Myles Garrett. Garrett's probably going to cost you an insane amount of money. Trade capital. Multiple people are saying 2 first-round picks for him. Kupp is going to probably be fairly cheap because he's an old wide receiver who plays just the slot. But real quick, let's just do a quick yes, no. Would you trade, assuming that's the kind of trade it is, for Myles Garrett or Cooper Kupp?
Garrett, yes. Kupp, no.
So you trade like 2 first rounders for Garrett?
Yeah, I think they desperately need some talent in the defensive front four. Yeah. And I mean, Garrett has problems, and he tried to beat Mason Rudolph with a helmet. Right. There's that, but they could use a guy with that kind of talent.
He's also a defensive MVP.
Yeah.
Yes, and he's average. He's had 14. See, I have his stats here.
It was 14 sacks last season, which is a down year for him.
Here's his sacks: 7 as a rookie, then 13.5, 10, 12, 16, 16, 14, 14. That's
right.
At multiple time first team All-Pro. I would do it.
And that's not even counting all the pressures he's gotten on the quarterback. The hurry is everything.
I mean, he's the best defensive end in the game, probably.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, I would absolutely do it. And I'd even offer, it won't even cost you 2 first round, but it's definitely going to cost you 8 first. Certainly a second, maybe this year or next year. But every time we always hear these big names for these trades, going to be like multiple first round picks, but hardly ever amounts to that. I would definitely give him my first round pick for him this year. Or something where you give up a second and a 5th or a 4th and a 1st next year or something that, whatever. Him, absolutely. I would jump all over that, especially what they need on that defensive front. And for the people who say, well, we're going to go with Deron Payne or Jonathan Allen and that, stop it. Cleveland Brown's not going to take either one of those contracts like that. That's not going to happen.
No, they're trying. If they trade him, they're trying to blow it up and get younger.
Right.
And, good luck with Deshaun Watson on that roster.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? They should trade for the kicker with the Ravens. Just let's build a whole team of creepy weirdos.
Get Justin Tucker, Mr.
Yeah. Another massage guy.
In a strip club, yeah.
Yeah. What is wrong with you guys? Stop going to massage parlors and getting this shit done and trying to do this.
And we'd like to point out that this is an allegation.
Allegedly.
Right.
All right. Fine.
And besides, you make enough money to get a massage parlor built in your own home and have someone and hire somebody.
Right. Right.
So Garrett would need an extension. So
That's
Garrett
true.
he's in year 4 of a 5-year, $125 million contract, which obviously 2026 expires. He's got a bunch of void years and stuff in here. But I don't feel like explaining what a void year is right here.
Yeah.
But bottom line is $19.7 million cap hit, 20 million in 26. But if they were going to trade for him, the condition would have to be you sign finish out your career in DC.
I might do Garrett if it wasn't 2 first rounders. If it's like one in another, like 2 first rounders is a lot for.
I mean, he's a 4-time first team All Pro.
Right. He's also 29.
Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, I know, but they're going to ask for the moon.
Yeah. I wouldn't do Cooper Kupp because good wide receivers are a dime a dozen.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I like Cooper Kupp. Like, I love a good slot receiver, but
and he's already 32, by the way.
Yeah. I'm not trading for that. All right, so that should wrap us up, unless anyone has any other business.
That sounds like you cut Dave off.
Well, no, I was just gonna say Cooper Kupp. If it was like a late conditional pick for someone like that, and they take on a bulk of his contract that's remaining, I wouldn't mind that playing the slot right there. I wouldn't be against.
I'm not trading for a 32-year-old receiver.
Yeah, I would sign one. I wouldn't trade for one.
Yeah, there you go. Me too.
Yeah. All right, that should wrap us up then for the show. Guys, enjoy the Super Bowl. I hope you all eat too much. I hope those who drink too much and call out for work.
And do something else during the halftime show. Boycott it and show the NFL you're sick of it.
Go look at like slideshows of like an old vacation or something.
Watch another channel during this halftime show.
I rarely ever watch the halftime show anyway. I typically go out to eat and do other things. By the time I'm all done, all that, they come back to
Let's
kick
start
off the second half.
A petition to get the Foo Fighters in as the Super Bowl.
What's the thing people say? Go and touch grass. Go do that. All right, guys. You all have a good night and enjoy the Super Bowl.
All right, later.
Later.